You know, I'm not exactly sure why I did this, but I just looked up passive-aggressive on Wikipedia, and what I got was ambiguity, avoiding responsibility by claiming forgetfulness, blaming others, chronic lateness and forgetfulness, complaining, does not express hostility or anger openly, fear of authority, fear of competition, fear of dependency, fear of intimacy, fosters chaos, intentional inefficiency, making excuses, losing things, lying, obstructionism, procrastination, resentment, resists suggestions from others, sarcasm, stubbornness, sullenness, and willful withholding of understanding. And I thought to myself, who does that describe? I would say it's an accurate summary of Blizzard's attitude towards us, at least what it's historically been. I'm not going to give it a skull or anything, but I don't know, it just seemed fitting for me to mention this. There's something else that's lame that Blizzard ought to do, but they haven't done yet. Drop Blessing of Kings down to a trainable ability. I mean, come on, it's a blessing. It's not like they force mages to spend talent points so that they can even get Arcane Brilliance, or like they force warriors to spend talent points so that they can even get Commanding Shout, and it's not like they force priests to use talent points so that they can get Divine Spirit. Oh wait. Okay, I won't give it that big a skull. Anyways, they've given a lot of the same treatment that they gave to Holy also to Protection. They've reshuffled and buffed quite a few of the talents. Stoicism is a lot easier to get, Anticipation is great for avoidance, and my only real concern about this is that the low-cost talents in Protection don't look quite appealing enough to a Holy build. High-end Protection, on the other hand, looks great. I mean, take a look at Hammer of the Righteous. Paladins will continue to reign supreme as AoE tanks. I'm not sure what they were thinking with the changes to Avenger's Shield. I mean, a 10-second snare? What's that for, a player versus player buff? Paladins were asking for things like a silence buff or making it instant cast, but that's not what we got. I mean, what were they thinking? High-end Protection is still good, though. I mean, take a look at Touched by the Light. It's a lot like Sheath of Light in a lot of ways, in that it provides versatility without sacrificing too much specialization, and we really need more talents like this one in our trees. When I first saw Touched by the Light, my thinking was, oh no, that is way too deep in the tree and it's an absolutely essential talent. But then I realized, no, it's not an essential talent at all. It's a supplement, and a really good supplement at that, but it's still a supplement. Just about all our abilities now have an attack power coefficient as well as a spell power coefficient, even stuff that you wouldn't expect, like Consecration and Exorcism. So something like this isn't necessary, but it's definitely going to help, since we're probably going to see a lot of strength on our tanking gear, and strength contributes to attack power. So on the whole, I think I'm going to give another 9 for the Protection talent changes. Speaking of our itemization, they're talking about making tanking plate universal. Paladins, warriors, and death knights all will be able to make use out of the same piece of tanking equipment, and they'll be able to do it well. Paladins have been crying to have their stats consolidated, so this is good. Provided, of course, that it works. One thing that concerns me about it, though, is mana. I mean, if we're not going to be getting any plus intellect on our gear, and we probably aren't, considering that warriors and death knights aren't going to have any use for plus int, then what are we going to do for mana? A solution that's occurred to me, and it might have already occurred to Blizzard at this point, is that they could make strength affect mana in much the same way that intellect does. I mean, we're a melee caster hybrid, that makes sense. Considering the steps that Blizzard is taking in the direction of finally consolidating our stats, I think I'm going to have to give it another heart. Speaking of consolidation of stats, take a look at what they're doing with our seals. They don't just have a spell power coefficient anymore, they have an attack power coefficient. That means that they scale with gear no matter which way you go. On top of that, Blizzard is redoing our seal and judgment system. And it's about time, too. First off, all the seals now last for 2 minutes instead of 30 seconds. Secondly, Judgment doesn't consume them anymore. That means that it makes sense to spam Judgment. It's not mana efficient to wait until the seal is almost done and then judge. You just spam Judgment. And no matter which seal you have active, you're going to do some damage when you judge. When I first heard about these changes, I was hoping that Judgment would turn into more of an on-demand strike ability with a secondary effect that happens to depend on which seal you have active, more than it would make Judgment feel like a funky ability that converts a buff into a debuff like it is now. But unfortunately that's not the case. It's better than it was before, granted, but Judgment still is primarily a debuff applying ability. There are 3 Judgment spells now: Judgment of Light, Judgment of Wisdom, and Judgment of Justice. So now you have 3 separate buttons to click, and regardless of which seal you have active, the judgment listed is the judgment you're going to get. This is an improvement over the original, but it's not as good as it could be. It's pretty close though. Anyhow, given all that I've said so far, there is no way that Blizzard isn't paying attention to the things that we're saying. I mean, people have been asking for an on-demand mana regeneration ability, ways to make the seal and judgment system more fun, heal over times and area of effect heals, and we're getting that stuff. There is no question in my mind, Blizzard is paying attention to the things that we're saying. But there are still some things that we need that we aren't getting. First of all, we aren't getting an interrupt. Blackweb made a very good point that Retribution Paladins need an interrupt in order to kill healers because we don't have enough DPS to keep up with their healing. Holy Paladins in arenas are much too easily locked down. Druids have Cyclone, Warlocks have Fear, I already went through this whole list. The point is, they can shut us down and we can't shut them down. We're defenseless. Divine Shield is on too long of a cooldown to count as a defense for this. Protection Paladins also need an interrupt because we're having trouble tanking casters. I know that that's the Death Knight's niche, but honestly, we should be able to do it at least. So all 3 builds really need an interrupt, and Blizzard hasn't given us one yet. They really, really should. Another thing we don't have that we really need is a ranged ability that we can use at low levels. I mean, it's really annoying to not be able to pull at range, and it detracts from the fun factor a lot. You know what Blood Elves are using their racial mana tap ability for? They're using it to pull enemies while they're leveling. And high-end Paladins have various ranged abilities, so why can't low-level Paladins have the same thing? I honestly think that Blizzard should consider making Judgment ranged or giving us Holy Bolt or something. It would really make the game a lot more fun, and there are ways to do this without breaking the class. Another thing that they should have done that they're not doing is undoing the Season 1 nerfs that broke the class in player versus player. Maybe it won't be necessary with all the buffs that we're getting in Wrath of the Lich King, but I honestly think they should consider it. Given all the things Blizzard hasn't done, I think it deserves about a 5 skull. But if there was one thing that I was going to give Blizzard a skull for, it would be the lack of communication. I mean, come on. Blizzard is doing a complete overhaul of the Paladin class. Now is the time when they should be communicating with us the most, not the least. Patch 1.9 was one of the biggest failures in MMO history because Blizzard refused to communicate with the Paladin class. Not in a good way in any case. But I have to admit, Ghostcrawler's answer as to why Paladins aren't getting any blue posts right now makes sense to me. Blizzard isn't at the particular juncture in their balancing for Wrath of the Lich King where they're actually looking at the Paladin class again. But let me tell you, if Blizzard doesn't have a lot of blue posts, and I mean a lot of them, at some point in the very near future, there are going to be massive problems. I'll admit that Blizzard has demonstrated a lot of sincerity with the Wrath of the Lich King talents that are out now, and with the blue posts that do exist. So it is possible that we're in for the fix we're longing for. Only time will tell for sure.